Hello, welcome. This is technically my first long form video apart from the short horror game trailers that I've been making. And although I had some other videos that were technically meant to be created, this is the first one that really decided to come into fruition. My name is Kay. I am a writer and also now recently a baby developer, having been developing games since March 2025. So I like to call myself a baby developer though, because I'm still learning the ropes along the way. Now, at first I wanted to make a video about my second horror game that I launched, which was a game that I decided to make in a month or two. However, I did decide to divert that and discuss my very first game that I launched, mostly because there was a very specific point in time where I wasn't sure where I'd carry on or not, and where I was this close to quitting. So the very first game that I launched, mind you, I'm saying launched here, I did make other games in courses as I was getting to be familiar with Unity, but the very first game that I created was called She's Lost Here, and it's basically a maze-like backrooms game where you have to run around and collect enough shards in order to escape, but also you have to avoid monsters running around in the maze. Now, is it inspired from the game Dark Deception? Probably. I still have to finish that specific horror game. I might have rage quit during a bug in the boss fight, but absolutely amazing horror game and absolutely the source of inspiration for my very first horror game. And the reason that nearly caused me to quit horror gaming itself was one very simple concept in gaming, and that is the character controller. Now, when I first started developing games, obviously I wasn't very familiar with Unity, I wasn't very familiar with how it's functioning, or just how specific you have to be in order to make sure everything compiles successfully, because if one script goes awry, then none of the game works. And I'm still not quite too sure what I did wrong at the time, but I do know it was devastating. And the character controller was my biggest enemy, and I will explain in a second as to why. First thing I wanted to explain is in Unity, I created this massive map. This was a massive maze. If any of you guys play it and actually see the map, you will just see how massively big this thing is. Did I say that this was a massive maze? Anyhow, now my very first map, I didn't like at all how it was created, how it was styled, how it was formed. Essentially, I didn't like it, so I decided to recreate the map a second time and spent at least another 6 to 10 hours on this map, probably 10 to 20 even. I'm not exaggerating. There's a mosquito. There we go. Hide. I don't want to get eaten by bugs. So after I created my second map and spent an extensive amount of time on the map making, I added in my character controller and everything actually worked fine originally. But then came the enemy AI, and he might be like, hey, what's that got anything to do with the character controller? I will explain what I can recall from the time. Unfortunately, I didn't take as much footage as I have with these other games that I'm busy making, like for example, My Growing Nightmares. I've got a lot of captures. I don't have that specifically with She's Lost Here, so I'm going on based on a lot of memories. So what happened was I created these partygoers, and these partygoers are meant to chase you around the map. It's pretty simple and easy concept, and a very simple kind of AI that needed to be set up. However, I found a problem. There is more than one enemy AI in this map. However, whenever I triggered any of these three AI through a collider, only one, and this was the original AI, would start chasing you. Neither other two that were there would even care about you at all. Now that is fun probably for any of the players who want to play the game safely, but it is not fun for a developer who needs to figure out why the heck the only one enemy AI is chasing you. So what I thought and originally did, I messed around with the enemy AI, and then it happened. My character controller just wouldn't work. And it's not like I'm pressing play on Unity and it tells me, hey, this is the error. I would press play to start the game in Unity, and I would just get access to the camera, and that's it. On my character controller, I could not move them, they could not jump, crouch, nothing. I had no control over my character controllers. And so originally I thought, hey, not a big deal. All that I needed to do then is maybe clear out the scripts of the enemy AI and then just carry on with my character controller. That didn't work. I'm like, okay, not the end of the world still. Let me remove this character controller and add in a new one. Unity does offer free character controllers for you to use in the game. That's available in the Unity Asset Store if you are interested. And this is specifically the character controller that is still functioning in the game after I fixed the problem. But as you might have known, nothing worked, not even this character controller. No matter how many times I tried to fix it, nothing would work. And to my panic, I realized I might have to restart this project in its entirety, and I might have to spend another 9 to 10 hours making this map. Now, if I were to diagnose this problem again or to face this problem again, all that I would have done is created a new scene, copied and pasted over the map, and cleared everything else out in order to fix whatever bug was going on in the game. I didn't know better at the time. So I, in my head, thought the only option that I had was to start completely from scratch and rebuild that map for a third time, which it broke me. It honestly broke me. So what I did was like, okay, if Unity is going to be like this, I'm just going to switch over to Unreal Engine. You know, that's going to be the easier option for me. So I download and install Unreal Engine and I try and play it. It doesn't work. You need a horse to run Unity. Ugh, not Unity. You need a horse to run Unreal Engine. So I basically had to trudge back to Unity. I am going to switch over to a more stable version of the game maker, mostly because as a new developer, it's maybe not as good to start creating a game in a software that is known to be very buggy and to have issues. It is just not conducive for a person's sanity. That's all I can state. And this is the time that I really started questioning myself, and there was one very specific question I remember asking myself mentally is, am I cut out for gaming? There was absolutely no pressure in me making this game. I could walk away and no one would be the wiser. So basically, I had the least to lose at that time to just walk away. But I got bit by some kind of eager beaver bug, and I knew I wanted to prove to myself that I could make a game. This is something I had not even comprehended or thought of pretty much the beginning of that year. I had no idea that I was going to go so deep into game development and to keep growing here. And it's been an absolute fantastic ride. But at the time, I really reached that one question every person who reaches something that they truly love actually arrives at. It's a question that a person has to ask himself on whether or not they love something enough to endure through the suffering that comes with it. And that includes game developing. There's a lot of suffering involved. You can just ask anyone who's creating a game. There's so much suffering involved. Anyhow, so after I reached this crossroads, I decided I'm going to carry on with gaming and I'm going to keep pushing through. However, I was much more careful with my scripting. I was much more careful with my character controller. And I was very, very focused on making sure that everything worked and functioned as they should, to avoid as many compiling errors as is possible and hopefully not encounter that bug. Do I still know what caused that bug? No. If I had the opportunity to take a look at the items and at the game again, I probably would, but I might have deleted that specific file from my computer for good, so that's gone. Nothing that I can really look back on. Right now, I'm busy creating 2 horror games, which is blowing my mind because I'm absolutely overwhelmed. I'm absolutely going crazy, and I'm absolutely having so much fun creating 2 projects at the same time. It does feel a bit like a juggle fest because as a game developer, you have to wear many hats. You have to draw things, which I mostly do. You have to code, obviously. You have to focus on the music, which I confess I am more grabbing it from copyright-free sites that I can legally do that. And yeah, so many different hats, and it's been so incredibly rewarding but also tiring at the same time, which is why I am working slowly and getting a little bit of slow progress, but also obviously the marketing. I'm also very much focused on leaning in on my strengths, which is the storytelling of the games, because I've been a writer for over a decade now. And so it kind of makes sense that I'll lean into the storytelling aspects of the games to really hold my games up. That is my goal and my hope for the following 2 games. And what I wanted to state is maybe just some words of encouragement to anyone who's just starting out game development. Don't let anyone who's telling you how complicated it is scare you off. Is game development complicated? Yes. I would declare it as 90% of problem solving and 10% actually of making the game, mostly because problems tend to arrive and show up everywhere. However, it can be incredibly rewarding if you love it enough. And I think that's kind of like the crux I really want to highlight. There is no shame in walking away from something you realize you do not have enough passion for. But don't give up if you do love it enough. Don't be intimidated by what people and how people describe game development, because there's been so many things that I've been rewarded with. There's been so many things that I've been enjoying about this. And so that is the one thing or one part that I could maybe advise anyone who's just about to start game development or has been thinking about game development. Here's another thing about starting game development. The best way to make a game is actually just to start. And if you want to start at point A, learn the game engine that you want to use, take a few courses if you can. Unity offers free courses. I'm not sure about the other game engines. It's entirely up to them. I'm very sure you can find a lot of free courses on YouTube to figure out what you need to figure out. And also, if you do happen to make this massive game-breaking bug, you can restart. It sucks, it's painful, but restarting is always an option as well. It's essentially falling and getting up, maybe just a little bit more time extensive and painful because of that. But if you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Also to hit the subscribe button down below and let me know what are some of the game projects you are working on. What is some things that almost caused you to quit, or maybe something decided, or maybe you did actually decide to walk away from something. I wouldn't know. Let me know, and I'll catch you guys all in my next video.